Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the virtual breakfast session. I'm Larry Sashin, and today we have a very, very interesting group that we're going to be talking about. But before I do that, let's thank the guy who's paying the bills, Ed Flanagan, and the Era Group. Listen, I've said this over and over and over. If you are spending $100,000 or more on any single vertical in your business, and you're not quite sure you're getting what you paid for, so call Ed Flanagan and the Era Group. Their people will sift through your invoices, sift through your contracts, make sure you're getting exactly what you paid for. And if they think you're paying too much, they will show you alternatives on how you can get more for less. Ed Flanagan, the Era Group, and back to this show. Just, I want to introduce somebody that is, we had her on the show once before. We had to have her back again. Tami Wilson. Say hi, Tami. Tell the people who you are.
Good morning, Tami Wilson. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Feeding Westchester. Thank you for having me this morning.
Okay, and tell the people exactly what Feeding Westchester is.
Sure. Feeding Westchester is Westchester County's only food bank. Our job is basically to be the middleman, right? We are the middleman between federal, state, and county dollars, food and funds. And what we do is we work with our 175 partners throughout the county to distribute that food so that they can then distribute it to our neighbors in need throughout the county. So working with our partners on food insecurity and making sure people have enough to eat and to supplement SNAP and other things, working families, single parents, seniors, veterans, children, all of it.
Okay. So we've all been through Thanksgiving, but before we do that, Fred, say hi.
Good morning. I'm Fred Klashman, editor and publisher of Total Food Service.
And once again, I'm Larry Sashin. Listen, Thanksgiving just passed, and I don't know about your house, but my house was frantic. What are we going to serve? What are we going to do? How are we going to get the food on the table? Who do we sit next to who? This is small potatoes, man. This is just small potatoes. Tami, how many people did the food bank feed this Thanksgiving?
Our busiest week of the entire year is the week leading into Thanksgiving. We normally move on an average week about 400,000 pounds. This Thanksgiving, or leading into Thanksgiving, we moved over 600,000 pounds of food, much higher than last year, and we've seen it creep down a little bit this week, but it was a very large amount for leading into Thanksgiving. So myself, the team, we took a very warm nap probably on Thanksgiving. I did not think about Thanksgiving. I told my kids there was some potatoes in there, just mash them up and figure it out. Figure it out. But no, it was a really, out of the years that I've been here in the organization, we hit over 600,000 pounds of food just that week.
Okay. As Americans, we always have the cornucopia. We go to supermarkets and there's rows and rows and rows of food and we hear about people who don't have, and we see people on the street, we see people that are living in ramshackle houses. When we spoke last, you talk about the people who need assistance. There is no face to these people. There's no description for this. Tell us a little bit about, who you were feeding and who you are feeding.
I often say that hunger has no face because it can look like anyone, right? From any race, sex, religion, anything. It can just look like anyone. So whatever you think it is, because even myself used to have this image, right? It's homeless people. It's not. It's everyone. It's actually, given everything that's happened, I think a lot of people think it's also only SNAP recipients. It's SNAP recipients and it's working families who don't even qualify to get SNAP, but are still not making ends meet. Oftentimes people say most working families are about 2 paychecks away from being homeless or hungry. That's a problem. That's a working family. So in Westchester County, for a family of 4, for the mere basic is 100, like with the Alice report through United Way of Westchester and Putnam County, $130,000. My son is never leaving my house because he's never going to ever, at this point, make that, right? It's hard out here. So my house is like a haven for him because it's tough out there, right? Life is lifing and adulting is hard. But the reality is that working families who are not getting SNAP are really some of the ones that we really do see a lot of. And then also you have to think about seniors. I cannot imagine working my whole life, retiring, and then having to stand on a line or just asking or needing help for food. Like, I think in itself is just, that's heartbreaking. Same thing for veterans. And then children. We're all very fortunate that we live in a state that adopted universal school meals. We're like the 9th in the country. And so this allows kids to have breakfast and lunch because there's a gap between the time that school ends and dinner time. There's a gap when it's summertime. There's a gap when there's a holiday, which is coming up, right? So the kids are going to be out for a week and change. So parents and, families are really hunkering down and keeping as much food as possible during those vacation times as well. So whatever you may think, you're probably wrong. And I'm happy to say I was wrong too until I actually started doing this work.
Yeah, you had mentioned how could there be hunger in Westchester? Fancy, ritzy Westchester. I remember your comment, Westchester's posh. There can't be hunger in Westchester. All these things build up in your head and then you start to understand what's going on. Fred, you had a great point with government.
Well, my question was, we came out of when we originally met Tami several weeks ago, the government had been shut down, SNAP benefits were not being distributed, and all of a sudden what issue that had been sort of a peripheral issue became a centerpiece of what was going on with the government shutdown. Now that that's over, I'm sure there are those who have mentally and emotionally moved on from looking at this issue. Let's talk about why this issue is still important, and let's talk about how you sort of frame it and how, as in our case, a restaurant owner or a food distributor, how do you respond to it and support it?
Right. I think the biggest thing since the government shut down is a lack of trust in government, right? From as a nonprofit organization, as a recipient of SNAP, as an employee of a government, I think that one of the hardest things is that people have lost trust in the safety nets of government, which I think is huge, right? People are going to, I was saying before, it's going to take people a couple of weeks to really mentally get around all of this. But the reality is it's going to probably take months. Weeks is probably, they could take a breath, but it's probably going to take much longer than that to build back trust and to really think about, new work requirements that they have now that they have to do, right? There's now new work requirements for people who may lose their benefits because of a new policy with what we call ABODs, right? So it's able-bodied adults with dependents because they've opened it up. And so now more people may not be able to get benefits and they have to recertify and have different work or volunteer requirements. And the reality is that SNAP has always been an issue. It's never been enough. It was made to supplement. There are also things within SNAP that were cut with the HR 1 bill that people may not realize. It's something called the Thrifty Plan. The Thrifty Plan is, think of it as an opportunity to change SNAP benefits and because of inflation. And they stopped it. They paused it. They said, no more. There's no inflation. So imagine you get $3 and 5 years from now, you still get $3. But food costs increase, but you still have $3, right? So that's already, you're hurting people again. But the thing with this HR 1 bill is that there's so many small things that they took away. If you're not paying attention, you don't realize that they're taken away, right? Everything with government shutdown, the loss of trust, people's mental, imagine you don't know for a week where your next meal is coming from. Not like you hope, you just don't know. And you have children, adults, you have to sit there and say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to get my much needed medication, or maybe I'm going to get my medication, but I'm just not going to eat. But maybe your medication, you need to take it with food, but that's okay. I'm just going to get the medicine in my body. Like the mental craziness around that broke my heart, for those six weeks. That was horrible. Yeah. And then lastly, we have to think about SNAP in totality. SNAP, people just think about food, but when you go into a supermarket, you don't only just buy food. Women buy feminine hygiene products. You buy baby food. You buy diaper, toilet paper, paper towels, Ziploc bag, anything, right? It doesn't cover the full gambit of things. And the reality is that that's what's lacking. And that's why SNAP it's never been the greatest, but we've always advocated. When I say we, I mean food banks across the country, Feeding America, those even not food banks. People have advocated for an increase in SNAP because it does not cover everything. And so with the lack of trust, people really getting their mental together, especially the holiday season is hard enough on mentally, it's hard enough on people's hearts. You don't know what people are going through. You don't know if people are alone, with family, not with family. People have lost. And to do this during this time of the year was cruel, absolutely cruel.
You mentioned seniors. There's a whole generation of people, like you mentioned, that have done what most Americans don't do. They saved. They planned everything out. Fred and I know somebody who worked all his life, had everything he needed. He worked it, had a plan. He followed the plan. He retired. He moved to Florida. 3 years later, he had to go back to work because what he had planned all his life, it was sort of like the rug got pulled out from underneath him. How are you helping seniors, these people who are quiet, they're silent, they don't open their mouths, they just choose between medication or food? How are you helping seniors?
So seniors, to your point, really different, often sometimes challenging population to reach. And so what we find is that we have a home delivery program that came out of COVID, which is a Feeding United home delivery. And so what we do is we identify either senior centers, senior programs, other partners, what we would call a non-traditional partner of ours. And we identify them and we can either get them specific food distributions where we come to those locations, or we can do home delivery direct to your home. So you don't have to come out, right? So, because sometimes you have these buildings that don't have elevators. We don't want you schlepping up and down the stairs, right? We want to meet you where you are and try to eliminate that burden of going downstairs and getting it and going to a distribution if we can help it.
So one of the things I'm interested in is what we actually met you at a food distributor show. What can the food service industry, meaning distributors, restaurateurs, operators, what can they do to help? And how should this become part of their community mission and community agenda?
Right. And I'm sorry I didn't answer your question before, Fred. I apologize. I think the first thing really is, I think all distributors and restaurants need to really look at their waste, right? You know, there's waste in almost everything that we do. So I think we need to really look at their waste. I think the first thing I would say, especially I'll start with restaurants. Restaurants are very different because restaurants would be something with prepared food. We would call it a just-in-time distribution. Those restaurants, I would say the easiest and the best way to do this is coordinate and work with your local pantry. And so you can find your local pantry on feedingwestchester.org by finding out find food, find help. And what that'll do is you put in your zip code and you can see the pantries in your area, right? And so restaurants definitely can connect directly to the pantry. And then when they have a distribution, they can serve it and it's in and it's out. All you have to do is heat it. And then within 3 to 4 hours, it's gone. Perfect thing. A lot of food banks coordinate that. So it's a great opportunity. Distributors, there's an array of things that you can do. You can donate. You can have, as you had a food service event, think about ways to engage, right? So maybe there's oftentimes too for distributors, food banks, we do buy some of our food. It's not just all donated. There's opportunities like if we're buying a percentage from you, maybe you kick that back to us. There are certain events that you can do that can support us, right? And so for instance, we have an event called An Evening in Good Taste. If you provide some of the food samples for that, that'll be great. People it helps you, it helps us. There's always a two-way partnership. I think it's about visibility and connection. And then for us, really, it's also volunteerism. If I am partnering with a corporation, whether, it's a distributor, whoever it is, some people and some corporations just want a transaction. Here's $100,000, Tammy. Thank you so much. A picture, a photo, and you can go. Most organizations don't want transactional work. We want to bring you along with the journey. We want to show you what your dollar is doing for the community. We want to show you what your impact is. And food distributors can do that as well, right? There's not, you have sales. Guess what? We have the dollars. We can pay for them. We need to be connected in a way that if you give me chicken quarter legs at 50 cents a pound, I want to be able to extend that to our partners who also have dollars to spend, right? Because it's not just about us. We want to use our buying power to also support some dollars that are in the community, the partners. We can't get everything from government, right? So government may give us rice, beans, and chicken, but maybe my partners need halal and kosher, right? Maybe there's some gluten-free option. I think I mentioned this to you guys before. We had salmon hot dogs. My procurement person is never going to let me let that one because I can't let it go. A salmon hot dog, right? But people wanted it, right? And so that's the way that we can make connections and really figure out how to do this. But of course, food donations, if you want to give me a truckload of food, I'm going to take it.
Okay, so what are the mechanics of a distributor contacting you and walking through the process?
A distributor can, if they go on our website, absolutely, you're going to see who's in charge. But our head of operations is a wonderful man named Ryan Brisk. And Ryan will connect this distributor with our head of procurement, which is Kim Cicero. And they are amazing. And Ryan, I could totally drop his email, but he would be so upset, but I don't care. It's rbrisk@feedingwestchester.org. And that's your start point. So that's where distributors can start. Our operations is great. We're great with coordinating. We're flexible. We want to partner with you. you, right? We want to partner that you may have something like seasonings is a great example. Seasonings, people need seasonings. And guess what? Everybody can't get them on the line. And so we bringing in seasonings is really, really important for our community and our neighbors in need.
Now we're talking, it's a great outlet for short date, I'd imagine. Short date items you're running through. Tell the people how big your warehouse is and where it is.
Sure. Our warehouse is 62,000 square feet, and we're located in Elmsford, New York, right in between the Springbrook and 287. So we are accessible to most. And actually, just so you're aware, that 62,000 square feet has been a labor of love, at least since I've been there in my 2.5 years. We just finished our expansion of our cooler. And so our cooler during COVID was about 2,500 square feet, and we have a little over doubled that size because we wanted to focus on fresh produce, protein, milk, dairy, all of that. And so we had to expand in order to do that. So we just finished it. And so we are now a whopping 62,000 square feet. And
Wow.
yeah, before we were about 25,000 square feet.
You mentioned also that you have some special events during the course of the year.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about where those fall on the calendar for 2026 and how a chef could participate in something like that?
Sure. So we have an event called An Evening in Good Taste. And what it is a wonderful tasting. We do it at the Westchester Mall up in the Savoy in the food court. We transform it. It is a whole party. You have little bites in different restaurants, great drink, great music. And so our development team does that. And I would say anyone connected or wanting to participate in that is going to talk to my head of development, which is Janine Kelly.
Okay.
And her email is jkelly@feedingwestchester.org. And this is in April. So this is April of 2026. That is our biggest event.
A restaurant would have a table. They would bring an item that they feature on their menu. So with an opportunity to market what they're doing as well as being part of a great cause.
Correct.
And they would cook for the evening and be able to meet people and pass out business cards or brochures, et cetera, for their catering opportunities, et cetera.
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
So you
Terrific.
hit the nail on the head. And last year we did about 600 people at this event.
Great.
So it's a great opportunity for restaurants to come out and showcase. So we do have limited space. So we definitely, I would suggest getting with Janine right away. But it's a great event.
Do you have your date yet for 2026?
I think it's the 17th.
Great.
April 17th. So
terrific.
Good time. Actually, I'm triple checking. It's that week, but it's 15th to the 17th. It's probably the 16th. Janine will kill me, but yes.
Okay. We'll figure it out.
But we also have other events too. So we find that organizations really like to compete on who's the best at doing things. So we have events called we just had Holiday Hop, where there are corporations who will repack apples, potatoes, and onions, and whoever does the most in the short amount of time is the winner. They get bragging rights. People really do love this. The competition is crazy. And then we also have something in May or June where we call the Golden Scoop, similar function where you're competing. So there's definitely opportunities to work and compete.
And you know what I like about the co-op thing is that, a lot of companies are fighting to get people to come back to offices, and they're having issues with people collaborating. This is a great opportunity, even if everybody's working remotely, come and work together for a day for a great cause.
Absolutely. I mean, people need to come in, and I think the philanthropic arm of organizations have really shifted over the last 10 years. If you're in the community, you have to understand your community. You want people to purchase your service, your product, but what's the other side? How are you helping the community? You're asking for dollars because you're selling something, which is fine, but what are you doing philanthropically to really support your community? And we've seen an increase in that. And so we just hope that trend continues because it's important.
The other thing I want to ask you, on Sunday morning, I saw the CEO of Feeding America on Meet the Press. What's the relationship between Feeding America, your organization, and other local organizations? For those who don't kind of understand?
Right. So Feeding America, we're governed by Feeding America. So most food banks, there's about 200 food banks across the country. We are a member of Feeding America. So we have membership dues, and what we do with that is what they provide us are resources, opportunities, and connections with government, TFAP. They help us with advocacy, fundraising, systems, and data analysis. So they really do help food bank the growing need in the community. So similar to our 175 partners who are members of ours, we are a member of theirs. So they're the larger umbrella that we are under them. And so some of the donations that are given to Feeding America, they offer pass-through grants to other food banks throughout the country. So if they get something from, Procter and Gamble. Procter and Gamble will say, these are the different markets we want that we select, and we could be a recipient of that grant. And that's how we do that. So they have larger grants and donors that trickle down into some of our areas, depending on where they are.
And then I'm assuming they advocate politically in Washington as well with lobbyists. Okay, interesting.
And then also help and assist us on how we do that as well. So there's when we talk about the Farm Bill, when we talk about increasing SNAP, universal school meals, state funding, they give us a toolkit to help better position ourselves as we're talking to elected officials.
Let's frame this a bit here, because people like numbers. You and I spoke about what you're distributing now, what your plans are for next year. And I think people are going to be shocked because they figure, oh, the SNAP problem is over. Boom, we're back to normal. All right. Let's talk about those mind-boggling numbers. What are you distributing? What are you going to distribute for 2025? And what are you planning for 2026?
So we run on a fiscal year, so July to June. So for this fiscal year ending in June of 2026, we were anticipated to move about 19 million pounds. That's actually a million less because we lost funding. Because we received state funds from Governor Hochul during the government shutdown, we're now able to increase. So to give you a visual, normally our monthly distribution with this 19 million pounds is roughly about 1.5 million pounds a month. Now with this additional funding, we have the ability to move anywhere between an additional 500,000 to 750,000 pounds a month. So we are going to continue to increase and probably hit around 23 million pounds worth of food just for FY26. Now, what we're going to wind up doing for our FY27 fiscal year, which starts July 1, 2026, we're in the middle of budget season, and we're actually going to take a look at what's possible, but looking at different sources of funding coming in. How can we be creative in our distribution? But the baseline minimum need for us really is 25 million. Like it's 25 million. And it's probably more than that, but 25 million is a reality of where we are. Because we're never going back as the Feeding Westchester prior to COVID, which we were 10 million. We were a 10 million pound organization. We're never going back to that. Our new normal is I would say anywhere between 20 to 25 million.
So I guess your numbers go with inflation. As the number goes up, as inflation goes, more and more people need your help. Because unfortunately, you check your wallet late, prices are going up, not my income. And I think that's a general thing for everybody. So it's that time. It is that time when time is our enemies. Before we do anything else, I want to thank Ed Flanagan and the Era Group. Listen, you talk about inflation. All we've been talking about is inflation and need. If inflation is hitting you in the pocketbook and you're buying more than $100,000 worth of any vertical, call Ed Flanagan and the Era Group. Their people will sift through your invoices, sift through your contracts, and make sure what you're buying, you're getting exactly what you pay for. You're getting it at the best price. Let's talk about that one final tidbit, that bit of information, Tami, that you want to leave with people. So when they're sitting around and looking at the bill for their food and complaining how expensive food is, maybe they'll think a bit about you and your group.
I just want to encourage people to remember that advocacy is going to definitely be, and sharing your voice is definitely something important that we need to continue to do. I think people need to really understand that. I said this before, I am from Brooklyn. This is Westchester County. I am shocked and surprised that hunger is in this county. But now that I am aware, I'm fighting for our community. But I need people to remember that the difference between Westchester County and, let's say, New York City is that in Westchester County, hunger is hidden. In my mind, it's hidden. It's hidden, it's quiet, it lives in forests, and it's masked by large mansions versus different buildings. And because it's hidden, we need to be aware of how many people in our community are in need. And right now, it's 1 in 3 households. We saw an increase of from going from 230,000 neighbor visits a month. We're already at 242,000. So it is hidden. It is here. It is not just during October and December. It's all year around. It's impactful to everyone. And SNAP recipients are not just the only ones. It's SNAP recipients and working families, seniors, and vets. It's a whole community, and we have to start talking talking about it. We have to start advocating for an increased need because like we just threw out, whether it's SNAP, working families, everything, like we just have to start talking about it because it is, in my opinion, it is hidden in this county. New York City is everywhere. You see it, you feel it almost, but here it's hidden behind affluent communities. And we have to really start talking about it and doing something about it. It
Give
takes
everybody the contact information for your group.
Sure. Feeding Westchester, you can, our website is www.feedingwestchester.org. All of our information, whether it's my development, my operations team, myself, we're there. You can contact us if you need help for food. That's where you go. If you need connection to a partner or a pantry within your community to connect with, whether you're donating or spending your time, it's all there. So we welcome you to join us.
Thank you. Any last news there, Fred? Any last bit of information?
I think this is all about good karma. I think a restaurant or distributor gets involved with a group like Tammy's. I think it's all going to come back in good karma.
It will.
The majority of the people that listen to our broadcasts are people. There is a way to get involved. Go to that website, www.feedingwestchester.org, and click on donate. Doesn't have to be a lot. $10.
And today is Giving Tuesday. Just saying. Give
Wednesday. It should be
Give Wednesday. Give Thursday.
We're asked to give all the time. This one is actually a really good reason. Listen, give up that mocha latte, Komodo, whatever it is you get at Starbucks. Give up one of those and donate it to the pantry, the food bank. I think it would be a great tzedakah. It's charity. It just makes you feel good. So listen, everybody, we won't be back next week because Larry's going to be on vacation. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Listen, until that time, I only have 2 things left to say. Everybody, stay positive, test negative, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye now.